Hi, this is Everett Schroeder with the ERMI Accounting Department, and in this three-part video series, I will be illustrating the key steps needed to successfully create ZR's new monthly budget reprojection file. The first video, presented here, will focus on the more rote actions that are necessary to properly name the new file, update key numbers on a few tabs, and then import the new month's final numbers and refresh the budget pivot table. The pivot table will reflect the new month's numbers, and later on we will highlight that column green, like the subsequent columns before it. We will be working with two files here. First, we will be opening the prior month's reprojection file and then promptly renaming it to the new month's version. Later on in the video, we will be copying and pasting the new GL lines from ZR's P&L master activity file, and then allowing a macro to format those lines so that they will be more quickly pasted into the new reprojection workbook. Let's now start with opening the prior month's reprojection and naming it to the new month's version. After entering your proper file password, make sure to hit Update right here when prompted with the pop-up window, noting that this file has active links to other files and the tables therein. Those links power some of the VLOOKUP formulas that you will see be copied down later in the video. You'll note that I add the creation date to the file name, but this really isn't necessary. Just updating the month and making sure the year is correct will suffice fine. With the file renamed, let's quickly take a look and discuss each one of the tabs. The Budget Original tab has the initial budget that was built at the start of the year. We use the data from this tab to compare how we are doing on a reprojected basis compared to our original estimates, seen here in column N on an annualized basis. With each passing month, we need another month of data to be able to compare the original budget to the year-to-date actuals. So for this month's file, we'll be adding the October column here in the 9-month comparison tab, and that will be updated here in column T. This will be discussed a bit more shortly. Next up is the Budget Lines tab, which contains the underlying GL data needed to power the pivot table financial report. Here is where we'll be adding the new month's formatted lines and removing the corresponding old budget lines to create the newly adjusted financial report. The Pivot Table tab is essentially the newly adjusted financial report and has the current version of the reprojection. This will change once we get the new month's official GL lines swapped in. And once that happens, the column here, K, containing October's data will be highlighted green. The Personnel from CO tab is where Crystal will input the newly estimated personnel costs based on changes to potential hires and any changes in sales that may affect commissions. The Review Items tab is an optional use tab where you can formulate your budget questions as needed for follow-up by either Mike, Crystal, or Ron. The WS tab, short for Working Sheet, is where you will be pasting the new GL lines and have the macro format them for import into the Budget Lines tab back here. Finally, the 9-month comparison tab is the official report that is presented to management, comparing a reprojected estimate to the original budget and year-to-date actual to budget. This tab is extremely formula-driven and will require a few changes that will be discussed in the next section of this video. Okay, at this point we will begin the second phase of this video where we will make changes to key figures on some of the tabs mentioned previously. Let's start with the 9-month comparison tab. Here we will want to change all of the values in cells A1, B5, moving over here, T8, and U8. B5 and A1 are merged, so as a convention, Excel uses the leftmost value in the group. So here we will change 9 to 10 up here in the title cell, and then in T8 and U8. You should see the numbers in the subsequent cells below change value, and that is part of the formulas that were discussed earlier. These formulas will pull from the financial report here, which can be just thought of as one big grid, and also from the Budget Original tab here. Finally, we will want to change the tab name itself to the current month of the reprojection, as well as moving over the actual label one column over to column K. We haven't actually updated the new numbers in yet, so we'll hold off on highlighting this column green until a bit later in the video. Let's now open ZR's P&L master activity file. And the password here will be the same as the one that's also used to open the budget reprojection file. It is okay to hit update in this file as well. We're interested in October's data for the purposes of this training video. So using the filter in column D, we'll want to go ahead and select October. And then moving all the way down to the, to the last cell in column R, we'll want to highlight all the values, including the title row. This data, as mentioned before, will be pasted into the WS or Working Sheet tab. And we want to, as a general rule, use paste special values. With the new data pasted in, we can go ahead and close this file, making sure not to save any changes we made as a result of using the filters. With the new data now in the WS tab, we want to go ahead and apply the files macro to be able to quickly format this data and get it ready for pasting into the Budget Lines tab. The macro can be accessed by going into View up here, moving all the way over to the right, selecting Macros, and noting that there's just the one, Format Data. We'll go ahead and click Run, and we'll note that the data has been formatted and automatically selected so that we don't have to reselect it. Moving on into the Budget Lines tab, we want to go ahead and paste the data right here at the dividing line between the original yellow budget lines and the green actual lines. We'll want to insert the cut cells, making sure we shift the cells down. With the new cells pasted in, we'll want to go ahead and apply the formulas noted right above in the yellow section here in columns E, F, and G, and apply these to the new values for the October data set. We also want to apply the formula here, new amount, which is what drives the pivot table numbers, and get the formula copied up here into 0189, where the new data ends. So the formula is properly copied down. We want to go ahead and now remove the yellow October data, so the yellow's original October budget data, and get that out of this pivot table grid and moved all the way down here into the gray section. So you'll note that I actually copied the data over here to the right. And now that this is copied over, I want to go ahead and cut this and move this to the bottom. I'll want to apply the same formats, so I'll take off the borders and change the coloring to gray to note that these are the old lines. Now I'll actually go ahead and delete the lines since they're still up here at the top of the data grid. Part of the reason why we don't want to delete the lines altogether is in case we may have to reference back to them or possibly insert a description for an expense that's been moved forward into a later month. With the new data pasted in and the old data moved to the bottom of this sheet outside of the pivot table grid of data, we can go ahead and refresh the pivot table. You'll note the values change in column K. With the values properly changed, we can go ahead and highlight this column green. And now in the 10-month comparison tab, you'll also note that these values immediately pull into this worksheet. And we'll go ahead and we'll highlight this column green as well. You'll note here we have a slight issue in that insurance casualty